Hello again, I'm Robert Fifth, and usually when people think of records that have a big value, they usually think like psychedelic rare records from the 60s or heavy metal records from the 80s, maybe some punk albums from the 70s, stuff like that. You usually don't think of like mainstream pop albums from the 80s, I don't think. But actually, there are quite a few just everyday, ordinary, garden variety, run-of-the-mill, general release 80s pop albums that are kind of going up in value. And by value, I don't mean some random antique mall put a price on them, or somebody on eBay is asking $500 for like a Wang Chung album. I'm talking this is the actual value. Like multiple people are paying for this. This is the standard price for these albums at this point. Online, in record stores all over the country, from what I understand, this is the going rate for these very, very mainstream albums from the 80s that I used to see everywhere for $1. I will start things off with this album from Duran Duran Rio. This used to be $1 all day long. Back in the day when I was a youngin'. These days, this thing fetches up to $40, $45 a copy. Now, there are actually 3 different versions of this in the US. There's 3 different mixes you can get of this. There was the original one that came out in 1982 on the Harvest label, which has the UK mixes. Then they re-released it in 83 with some US remixes on here. A longer version of Hungry Like the Wolf came with version number 3 called the Night version, where it's over 5 minutes long. So yeah, there's 3 different versions of Rio put out within like a year's time, but all of them worth about $40 to $45. And when I say that price on all these albums, I'm talking like VG plus condition. I'm talking decent condition, a lot of times still on the shrink wrap. George Michael's Faith is another one, like a $40, $45 album. This used to be, in fact, I got this, I'm sure, for $1 back in like the late 90s, probably something like that. Got this for $1. 87, this is a huge release. A lot of people had this. It was available. A lot of these on Columbia House or the RCA Club. These are not rare albums by any stretch of the imagination. But for whatever reason, they have shot up in value. $40, $45 for this. Def Leppard, okay, it's more of a rock album, not really a pop album, but let's face it, it's a pop album. Hysteria from 1987, another $40 to $45 album. Even though it doesn't really sound that good, they're trying to pack like 65 minutes of music onto one record here. Not the greatest sounding thing, probably not something you really even want to play. I mean, it's been reissued with a 2-disc version, which is what you want, or maybe just the CD. $40 to $45 for this. Don Henley, The End of the Innocents. This was 50 cents back in the day. This is actually a promotional one with a stamp on it. I'm sure this goes for even more, but you can usually see the Don Henley album online in record stores and people buying it for this price. That's the main point. For, I don't know, around probably $25, something like that, $30, something like that. This is going for, it's later 80s, so that's probably why. Sade and Stronger Than Pride, $25 to $30 album. This used to be $1 all day long. Soundtracks, 80s soundtracks like The Breakfast Club and Pretty in Pink. Those are shooting up in value. This is like a $35 album now, probably more if it's in the shrink and all that. And this is like a mint condition one. Again, cost me $1 probably when I got it out of a bargain bin in the 90s. Now a $35 album. I wish I could turn back time and go into like 1997 or something and just buy all these for $1. Speaking of turning back time, Cher's Heart of Stone with the original skull cover. There was only 2 pressings of this made. This is about a $30 album at this point. It used to be $1 album. The later ones with a different cover I don't think are as much, but this is more collectible now, so like a $30 album from 1989. Tom Petty and Bob Dylan, Roy Orbison, George Harrison, Jeff Lynne make up the Traveling Wilburys. This is volume 1. This is probably about a $30 album at this point. In fact, all the Tom Petty records used to be $1, $3, something like that. They're all in the 20s, 30 ranges now. So are a lot of the Electric Light Orchestra albums, especially the Greatest Hits and Discovery and the double disc Out of the Blue. Those have shot up in value as well. Not all of them do. Not all of the 80s people are way up in value. You've still got poor Steve Winwood. Roll with it. There's all kinds of hit singles on here. Nothing wrong with this album. It's not a very good album. I'm going to get this for like $3 still. Poor Steve Winwood. Same thing with poor Billy Ocean. I mean, this has Caribbean Queen on it. This has an even better song called Loverboy. I want to be your do-do lover, do-do lover, do-do-do-do-do-do-do, with those 80s drums. Yeah, this is like a $3 album. I don't know how Billy Ocean missed the party. Speaking of Loverboy, poor Loverboy. Rocking out for $3. This did not go up in value for some reason. So it just seems kind of random. You know, why did like Don Henley, The End of the Innocents, shoot up? But you can't Roll With It from Steve Winwood is still $3. I don't really get that. But yeah, all these 80s albums, Jimmy Buffett's greatest hits from 1985. This is like a $45 album now. I don't know why. I know the CD has a different cover where it's just yellow and says Jimmy Buffett. I never understood that. I don't know why they just didn't use this cover. But yeah, it's like a $40 to $45 album depending on the value, the condition. Make sure you get the one with the T-shirt advertisement in it. Jimmy Buffett's greatest hits. This is probably all the Jimmy Buffett most people need. Maybe A1A. That's a pretty good album all the way through. Another compilation album from 1985, Billy Joel's Greatest Hits, Volume 1 and Volume 2. This is now about a $45, $50 album. And this was super common when it was released, and a lot of people had this. And of course, this is one you could get from Columbia House. And yeah, double album though, so I can see why this is a little more expensive. But $45 to $50 for this now. I guess because it's never been re-released. That's the thing. This was only available in 85, and I'm pretty sure this is the only Billy Joel compilation on vinyl. Now, this did come out again from Mobile Fidelity in, I think, 2017, but that's now gone up to like being about a $275 album on Discog. So you probably just want the original. But still, yeah, $45 to $50 album. Very, very basic greatest hits album. Double album from Billy Joel. Now, I don't have these albums because I thought when I was buying them that I was going to make a bunch of money. I have a lot of these albums just because I wanted to hear them. You know, I wanted to have the music, and I wanted to watch the record spin around while I heard that music. You know, with the exception of a few of them that I got because they were $1, and I thought, why not? So I wasn't buying these for collectability or because I thought the price would just skyrocket. I just think it's interesting that these very, very common mainstream 80s albums that a lot of people had are now shooting up in price. Here's a perfect example. Prince and the Revolution, Purple Rain. Love this album for the music on it. This is probably my second favorite album of all time. And this is probably about a $30 album at this point. I remember when this was like a $3 album. $30 if you have it with the poster. You got to have the poster in there. That's a little extra added value with that. But yeah, Prince and the Revolution, the Purple Rain soundtrack, excellent all the way through. Run you about $30 for one in good condition with the poster. Now, a lot of these, I said, are mainstream, garden variety, run-of-the-mill, everyday, good old 80s pop albums, very mainstream. Some of the more alternative stuff is a little more expensive. It always has been. The Smiths used to be a $5 album. Now they're more like a $40 album for their stuff. In the U.S. anyway, you can't find cheap Smiths albums anywhere. And if you do, you want to hang on to them. Speaking of UK albums, New Order's Substance. I wish I would have kept it on there. I used to have the price sticker still on this. I paid $1.99 for this. This is like literally a $100 album now. It just got reissued, so maybe the price of the originals are going to drop, but $100. And again, I just want to stress again, I'm not talking random pricing on eBay. I'm not talking random, I saw that price for that in the store. I'm talking the price across the board. I'm talking people have purchased this en masse, wanting this, paid $85, $90, $100 for this album. New Order, Substance. Paid these prices for all these albums. Yeah, New Order's kind of an alternative thing, so are the Smiths, but what about a pop group? Just a straight-ahead pop group. Like Roxette from Sweden. I think they're from Sweden, aren't they? Yeah, you would think this was a $1 album still, which is probably what I paid for it because I have this and I'm not a really big Roxette fan. But yeah, no, this is like a $35, $40 album. Probably a $40 because it's in the shrink wrap with the price sticker and the hype sticker and it's in great condition. Yeah, $35, $40 album for Roxette. Who saw that coming? I just want to say too, in addition to the Atari shirt that I'm wearing, I'm all decked out in 80s. Yes, of course, I have my Cars shoes on. Got to have those. And notice my jeans are wrapped and rolled. Very important for the 80s. Not just rolled. Not like, because people I've seen people at 80s parties where they want to wear the 80s jeans and they just roll up a pant. Like, that's not 80s. That's like 50s, Huckleberry Finn 40s or something. 80s, you got to wrap and roll. Wrap and roll, 80s. That's how we wore our jeans back then. We didn't wear black socks, though. That looked really dorky in the 80s. You wanted to wear white socks. Some of these so expensive, I don't even have the albums. Beastie Boys, Licensed to Ill. This is, I'm not the big Beastie Boys fan. I think some of their songs are okay. I could take them or leave them. But most people want to take this album for about $45 to $50 now, Licensed to Ill. And I'm sure their 90s albums, I mean, forget about it. But this was a really I mean, this used to be everywhere for like $5, $3. 45 to 50 bucks now for this 80s very, very popular album from Beastie Boys, Licensed to Ill. Also, Tears for Fears. There's another one that was just everywhere. Songs from the Big Chair. Dollar album had all those hits on there. Head Over Heels and Shout. And of course, the big one, Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Now that is a $40 album from Tears for Fears. I have no idea why. I don't know why some of these albums have shot up in price and some of them have not. I don't know who's controlling that up here with the strings. I do know why the Kate Bush album is so expensive these days, though. This was never really a dollar album. This is more like a $5 album. These days, it's more like a probably a $55 album if you get an original of this. This is the reissue, as you can tell. But Hounds of Love, it's all about that Stranger Things show. The little girl puts on that Running Up That Hill song, and that was all she wrote. Suddenly, this thing shot up in price. If you got the original cassette, because she plays it on cassette, I guess, that color cassette where the shell is purple, that thing is well over $100. But yeah, this Kate Bush, if you have an original of that, very, very pricey, very, very coveted. Record stores, not just putting it out for, $40, $50, but actually selling it for that price as well. And, another CD here. We're not just talking about pop. Let's talk about mainstream country to wrap things up. George Strait albums. George Strait, one of the biggest country stars of the 80s. His albums shooting up in price, going for like 30, 35, 40 bucks now. But this one takes the cake. Keith Whitley. This is probably his biggest album called Don't Close Your Eyes. It's from 1988. It's got like 3 or 4 hit singles on here. Very, very mainstream. Very popular. I mean, this isn't some obscure like country thing. This isn't some early Willie Nelson album from the 60s. This is a 1988, very, very mainstream, top 10 hits all over it, country album. Keith Whitley tragically passed away way too soon. Dollar CD here, which actually has 2 more songs than the record, but the CD is just $1. The record, I'm going to give you a second to guess how much this record sells for. Not wants to be, literally has sold for. I'll give you a second. Try $85 to $120. If you see this somewhere for $1, pick it up, sell it to somebody for $100. You can go out and buy like 5 of your favorite albums. Because country like this is still something that a lot of sellers haven't quite caught on to the value of, especially somebody like Keith Whitley. I'm not really sure why the Reba McEntires haven't shot up though, because she seemed like she was always a contemporary with George Strait. But some of them shoot up in price, some of them don't. I'm talking value here. I'm not talking random price. I'm talking what people are constantly paying for these very, very middle of the road, mainstream hit 80s pop albums. Just blows me away. So are the prices going to stay here? Are they going to start dropping soon? Are they going to just keep going up and up and up? We'll have to wait and see what happens. It sure is interesting though. Thanks for watching. I'm Robert Fithen.